Welcome in to the great Hale McGranahan with the Big Spur. I know you rushed home from practice, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you having me back on. And yeah, it's a lovely day for some Major League Baseball.
It is. I know. In the last year with a contract with ESPN, thankfully, since they don't ever care about airing ball games, baseball will be better for it. But there are a couple of games on the four-letter network today, and you can watch the Braves. If you can't watch the Braves, whatever service you have, you can watch them by downloading the FanDuel app and paying $20 a month. And that might sound ludicrous, but it's really not. $20 is going to Wendy's anymore. So there you go if you're a Braves fan. All right, we'll get to practice in a minute, Hale, but we won't bury the lead. We know that there's a star quarterback who's set to arrive on campus today. Tell us who and for how long.
Yeah, Brady Smigiel, the 2026 prospect. He's a 4-star. I think 24/7. I think he's ranked like number 6 or 7 in the country at the position. So very, very highly regarded. He and his family, mom, dad. He's got a twin brother who's a receiver. I don't think South Carolina's really recruiting him, but they'll all be with him when they get in later today. I think later in the afternoon, early evening is when they should be in Columbia, and they'll stick around through Saturday and head back home. It's down to South Carolina, Washington, UCLA, and Michigan. Those are his final 4, and I think South Carolina's in a really good spot, even though this will be his first visit.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, geography doesn't matter. He's willing to go about anywhere according to that map. I know he's from the West Coast. Hale, I think maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, so I don't know, somewhere in the last couple of weeks, I understand that there were some crystal balls that came in for the Huskies. What do you make out of that?
Yeah, I don't think it's a done deal. I know it's not a done deal. I do think that Washington is probably the biggest threat to South Carolina. That's something I've reported before on the Big Spur.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're very valid. They're not the quote unquote crystal balls. They're the on-3 version of those. Their forecast, or I can't remember exactly what they call them, but yeah, from some folks who work for that network, see him going to Washington, and that very well could be where he ends up. But like I said, it's not a done deal. The one thing that I think that's going in their favor, or at least they have working for them at Washington, is Jedd Fisch, the former Arizona coach, who's now the coach of Washington. Brady's dad played at Arizona, so there's a relationship between the family and Fisch dating back to when he was the head coach there. So yeah, that's something that's I guess a feather in their cap. But South Carolina's built some pretty good relationships here over these last few months with Shane Beamer and Mike Shula, and now they'll get a chance to have them on campus and see them for a couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, as you said a while back when we were talking to you, I think we were talking about the trio of elite quarterbacks that Carolina was pretty much in the game with, and I remember you saying could land one of these guys, could not land might not land any of them. You really just don't know. You were very open and honest about that. But the one thing that we do know, and again, it's not a guarantee, but the one thing that we do know, especially about this staff, is when they can get a guy on campus, more times than not, it ends up kind of working out in their favor, Hale. So, if you were a little bit weary of who are they going to sign as a QB or whatever, the fact that he's here unofficially, and then if he's here unofficially, if it goes well, which I'm sure it will go well, is he still planning on coming back and taking an official visit?
Yeah, he wants to try to get that scheduled while they're here. So
okay,
we'll see how that shakes out.
Okay,
I'm not sure where all he's scheduled for sure to take official visits to.
Okay,
I think Washington's maybe scheduled. He's going to Michigan next month for their spring game. But I think that's really the only one that's and it's an unofficial. I think that's really the only set in stone visit besides this one coming up here to Carolina for him.
Okay. So to try to wrap our brains around like a decision type timeline for him. If he does get an official scheduled for the Gamecocks, or with the Gamecocks, do you anticipate that would happen during the season?
No, I think it would probably be in June.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, that's when a lot of these guys are taking their visits.
Okay. All right. So he could have a decision maybe even before he plays his final year of high school football.
Right.
Is he an early graduate?
I believe he is, yes.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on that one, though.
Now, is this another situation where the family's going to pack up and move to, or do you know what his shirt size is? Hale, we got to get all the goods here.
I don't know the answers to either of those two questions.
Do you know where he likes to shop? What's his favorite shoe store?
I don't know. Under Armour.
Well, that's all right. Well, then we're in.
I'm just kidding. I don't know those answers, but I do know his dad is his high school football coach at Newberry Park High School in the Los Angeles area.
Okay.
His dad played at that high school. I don't know if his mom's from that neck of the woods or not, but they're pretty ingrained within that community, I guess is the way to put it. So I don't know again if they're gonna make the move or not. A lot of questions I don't have answers for.
Well, come on, man. What have you been doing all morning?
Watching special teams drills.
Well, I mean, there is just nothing better than that. I'll tell you what. No place I'd rather be. What do you like about his game?
Yeah, he's the question I've been getting a lot over these last couple weeks and months is how does he compare to Landon Duckworth, who was once committed to South Carolina and they're still kind of in on, and Duckworth is more of a dual threat, and Smigiel is not a guy that's going to get a lot of running plays called for him like design quarterback runs, but he moves well within the pocket. He can make plays with his legs if he needs to. He can extend plays. He's a capable athlete, not again a dual threat guy, but certainly one who if the labels of dual threat or pro style were still around, he would have the pro style label. So he's more of a passer than he is a runner. Mm-hmm. He's accurate. I think he's got a strong arm. I haven't seen him in person, so I'm just basing this off the same highlights that anybody else can go on and watch on Huddle. He's tough. He's played through some injuries over the course of his high school career. That I was going to kind of get into some of that stuff later today on the Big Spur. Some of those other intangible type of things that we may not know about. Just some stuff I've picked up and talking to his dad, just to have some more context on who this guy is as a player. And I think he checks a lot of the boxes that you want to check for your quarterback, and not just like the physical tools and skill set and all that. I mean, he's got the prototypical size that you want to see in a quarterback. So yeah, he's a good player, man, and obviously a top 10 guy at his position in the country for a reason. Very productive.
Guys who play for their fathers in high school generally end up being pretty good football players if their fathers are pretty good coaches. I understand his dad is. You mentioned Landon Duckworth. What's the late? Is there any news there?
I believe he's visiting Ole Miss today. He's got an official scheduled for South Carolina in June, so we'll see. I mean, it's kind of been Ole Miss, Florida State, South Carolina, Georgia a little bit, but I think Georgia's probably trying to figure out what's up with Jared Curtis right now, who's getting ready to make a commitment here soon, I think. So yeah, that's sort of the latest with him.
The Curtis, is he leaning towards Georgia?
It's either Georgia or Oregon. I don't know.
Okay,
but one of those two.
Yeah, you wonder how much of a ripple effect that could have. It's crazy how you get a couple of quarterbacks each class, Hale, that when they make a decision, there are numerous decisions that are affected after that, and sometimes that comes back to South Carolina too. In this case, maybe it could. I don't know. Yeah,
the dominoes. Curtis was committed to Georgia at one point, and obviously he was considering South Carolina for a little bit. Then, so if he goes to Oregon, what does that mean for Georgia? I'm sure they've got more guys in their crosshairs than just Landon Duckworth, I would guess. I don't know, but yeah, it's to your point. It's going to be interesting to see how that once that domino falls, how are things going to kind of spread from there.
Come to Georgia, have an opportunity to win an SEC championship, a national championship, get a degree, and get a record, a police record. Last week,
join a sorority and do that too at Georgia. Apparently,
boys can join a sorority in Athens.
Well, I don't know about that. I just never mind. You don't know this young lady I'm talking about she got pulled over for speeding.
Oh, I saw that.
Then as she was like leaving after the cop wrote her a ticket, she sped off and got pulled over again.
And they took her to jail. You know, she got arrested again.
Yeah, I'm in a group text where she's been a topic of conversation.
Oh, she's taken the internet by storm
Yes.
because of her smiling mugshots. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. So she interfered in I'm assuming, just being a veteran of 5 Points, I'm assuming that somebody was having some trouble downtown Athens, and she proceeded to let the police know that they needed to back off, to put it politely. And they told her, "No, it's not really how this works. You're the one that's going to need to do that." And she chose to not do that. So they just hauled her back in about a week after she got out of the clink.
Sorry for that digression from the topic, everyone.
No, I think it's great. Like, I'm sure her parents are incredibly proud. You know, like, at least your mugshot's nice. I mean, she's gone viral. I don't know. All right, last week you were up in the Carver's Bay area. Did you stop by Scott's Barbecue?
We did, yes.
Oh, yeah. How what? Forget Zion Giles. Tell me what happened. What'd you get?
Just got a little bit of pork, some baked beans, and went from there. And it was very good. It was my first time. I know that barbecue sauce can be a topic of fierce debate and conversation amongst folks.
Can be.
I like them all personally, including the vinegar based, which is what Scott's does with theirs, and it's got a little kick to it. It's very good.
So, because you and Alex both went, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, who drew the short straw of having to drive back to Columbia after that?
I mean, I've been with the company longer than he has, so I don't like to play the card of I've been around longer, so I've got seniority and I can make the decisions. I only do it for things that aren't related to work, and so he drove to and from.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a veteran move, if you ask me. After I eat a big plate of barbecue, I don't feel like driving 2 hours home. So whoever's with me they're going to be in that seat. Well, that's smart. But you did go there to cover the ceremony of Zion Giles, right? Don't we have that right?
Yeah.
Okay. The big-time offensive lineman who did choose the University of South Carolina. Did you get a chance to talk with him?
I did, yes.
What was the reasoning
for picking South Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
He feels comfortable at the school. He's got good relationships with the coaches and staff. He's an in-state guy, so that helps too. The success the program's had for the majority of Shane Beamer's 4 seasons at South Carolina is certainly notable as well. So yeah, he's the type of guy that comes from a very close family. They're very tight knit. I mean, his dad, I didn't realize this until after the fact, after we were done with the ceremony, and I talked to his dad, and his name's Jonathan. And I just, for whatever reason, I decided to Google his dad's name. Oh, the reason I started to Google him is because his dad played at South Carolina State back in the 90s.
Okay.
I think he was with the Falcons maybe for a training camp, and was cut and moved on to the professional world. And his profession of choice was law enforcement. And now his dad is a magistrate judge down in that part of the state.
Ooh.
So I say all that to say that just sort of speaks to the type of family he comes from. He's got an older sister who played volleyball in college, who's there too. They're a very supportive group around him, and those are the types of players that if Shane Beamer thinks are good enough to play at South Carolina, he's going to go recruit those types of guys. So sort of fits into that family type of dynamic that that you hear not just Beamer but a lot of college coaches talk about. So yeah, there's just a lot of interesting little tidbits there for you.
Yeah, that is very unique, and it's also good to know somebody if I ever get a ticket in that area. Luckily, that worked out for me when I got pulled over in beautiful Norway, South Carolina, about 20 years ago. So he's a second in-state commitment on the offensive line. Anthony Baxter, of course, was the first. And they've still got some guys out there at Hale. And Desmond Green from Timberland. I know that Shane was in town, I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago or somewhere around there watching.
January.
Do what?
It would have been in January, sorry.
January.
Yeah.
When he was down here, I think he came and watched him play basketball or something like that. And then, so anyways, my question is, how many offensive linemen are they going to take in this class?
I don't know the definite number, but I would imagine they're going to try to get at least a couple more.
Yeah.
And depending on who they are and who wants to come to them, they could probably go beyond and oversign, so to speak. Not that that's really a thing anymore because you can sign as many as you want to now, as long as you don't sign more than 85. So yeah, you mentioned Desmond Green. There's Trey Aiken from Clinton. Darius Gray from up in Richmond, who's been a priority recruit since before he even started high school for South Carolina. Mm-hmm. One of the top players in the country, regardless of position. Then a handful of other guys, J.B. Shabazz, who's from North Carolina, big tackle, Kamari Blair, another tackle who's from, I think it's in Clarksville, Tennessee, and a handful of other guys on top of that. So I think it's going to be another big offensive line class. I mean, that's usually how it's going to go. I don't think, just off the top of my head, I could be wrong. Somebody wants to fact check me, please do. I don't think they've signed less than 3 from the high school level since Beamer's been here. Then obviously they've taken quite a few transfer guys over the years as well. So right. I say all that again to say it's going to be a big class, whether it's 4 or 5 or maybe even a little bit more, just depending on who they feel like they can get. So I think it'll be another sizable group.
Yeah, I think Shane's mentioned whenever we talked to him, they like to have they want to have at least 17. 17, I think, was the number, if I remember correctly, on the roster. They seem to be signing 4 or 5 a year right now. And to be quite frank, I know that Lonnie Teasley is the one who establishes the relationship with the large majority of these guys. Hale, I don't know what the trick is or his ticket or whatever it is. I mean, I know he's a great guy and he's a very personable guy. But he's on a little bit of a heater right now. I mean, he's signing some guys that can play some football. I know there's a bunch of guys on this roster that have yet to be able to get out there and kind of prove their worth. They haven't gotten their turn yet, or they haven't earned their turn yet, one or the other. But overall, from a talent standpoint, if you look at the guys, I'm talking, not the transfer portal. I'm not talking about the portal guys. I'm talking about the high school guys. And maybe the last 3 years or so combined, they've gone out and signed and will be signing in this class. That's as good of a group as I can remember around here.
Yeah, they've done really well. And so how they structure the recruiting over there, and it's like this at pretty much every position, is they have a person who's dedicated to each position that's just solely a recruiter on the recruiting staff. And Sam Survey, who's over the offensive line for the recruiting staff, is the one who quote unquote establishes and really gets the groundwork going and is in a lot of contact even throughout the whole recruiting process. So he's had a big part in it as well. I mean, Greg Atkins is very involved, coaching the position, and of course like any position, Beamer's going to have some involvement too when it's the guy that they're really honing in on. Like for this 2026 class, he's heavily involved with a bunch of those guys, not just the offensive linemen. So it's a big group and it's a total team effort. To sound really cliche and kind of corny, that's what it is. And for whatever reason, they've had a lot of success recruiting that position over the last few years. And I think the biggest reason why they have, not to take anything away from any of those guys and gals who work over in that recruiting department, is it's been a very talented run on, like, there have been a lot of offensive line recruits in the state of South Carolina over these last 4 years or so, more so than it's really been probably ever, at least since I've been following this stuff, since like 2009. So
I'd agree with that.
That's, while offensive line's doing really well in state, there are a ton of really talented players that have come through the Palmetto State. It's kind of dropped off in defensive line because there was a time when it felt like the defensive line was the position where the offensive line is now, from a volume of recruits and high level players.
Incredibly well said. I couldn't agree with that anymore. It is a higher volume on that side of the ball, but there is a good one on the other side of the ball too. Julian Walker out of Dutch Fork. We've talked about him a couple of times. Hale, what's the latest there as far as visits, timeline, all that stuff?
Yeah, he doesn't have a definite timeline. He's really taking his time. He's not in a big hurry, I don't think, to make a decision. Recruiting for him is sort of in its infancy, even though his dad is an assistant strength coach at Carolina, and Julian's grown up around the game, the college game, for his whole life. This thing's just getting going. I mean, before the end of his football season, Dutch Fork's state championship game, I mean, he hadn't posted about a single offer on Twitter, hadn't done anything with his highlights on Huddle, really just had zero profile online, let alone a 24/7 profile or an On3 or Rivals or whoever. He was almost like, just not almost, he was very unknown. I mean, I think I've shared it before when I've been on here with you guys, is, I went into that state championship game, Dutch Fork versus Somerville, and I knew who Julian Walker was. I'd seen him around Carolina on the sidelines at games, out around the facility and stuff. And you see him and you're like, dang, that's an impressive looking guy. Come to find out he's the son of a strength coach. And it's like, all right, well, is any good? Well, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to go watch Dutch Fork play yet, and he doesn't have anything online. So, part of me was like, maybe he's just not very good. Like, in all honesty, maybe there's a reason why there's nothing about him online. Then, of course, come to find out, that wasn't the case at all. He's a stud. And then in talking to him, he's just like, I don't really post that stuff. And at the time, he'd only had Carolina and Coastal as his offers. And here we are now. I think he's got more than 15. He's going to go to Michigan next month. He's trying to get out to Southern Cal. Earlier this month, he went to Missouri, Tennessee, North Carolina, NC State. They've all offered. Everybody's offered him, all those schools. And obviously he's got a few more. So yeah, it could be a while before we get a resolution on that one. But I do think he'll probably try to get some official visits on the books, and we'll go from there.
So the latest news with Rodney Dunham is it's looking more likely he ends up in the gold of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, just based on what I've been reading.
Yeah.
How much more of a priority does that put on Julian Walker?
I mean, I think he was already a top priority for him. I mean, obviously 2 defensive ends played during a game, and I don't envision a scenario where South Carolina is going to try to not sign more than one. Like, I think they're going to be trying to sign 2 or more defensive ends for the foreseeable future, because we've seen around here, in some cases, going back to the previous coaching regime, it's not a good thing when you only sign like one defensive end, or in some cases like no defensive ends, because that kind of happened around here a little bit. So yeah, Julian Walker is going to be a priority for sure, regardless of what Rodney Dunham does. But I think Rodney Dunham will probably still be a priority for South Carolina, even if he does commit to Notre Dame. Because
so that's not over. You don't think that'll be over if he?
I mean, they'll try. I don't know if he's going to, reciprocate the interest, but I would certainly think that Carolina will continue along with plenty of others. I mean, he's a blue chip pass rusher. and people tend to really want those types of guys. And if you got one in Charlotte who's visited you more than any other school he's been to, you're probably going to keep picking up the phone and seeing if he's willing to answer and talk to you. So
that's a good point.
I don't think it'll be over if he picks Notre Dame. Just like if he committed to South Carolina next week or whenever his date is, I can't remember off the top of my head. But if he commits to South Carolina, they're going to have to fight for him too, because again, like people like those guys.
Yeah. We all like 5-star defensive ends. There's no question about that, especially ones that are within an earshot of your campus. All right, Hale. Last few minutes here on practice. I think today was our second day with pads. Today's practice 4, right? So
yeah,
I think it was our second day in pads. Anything that stood out this morning?
LaNorris Sellers appears to be the starting quarterback.
Well, that's somebody to Dabo that, tweet that, print that, tweet that. That's something.
Talk about it. Yeah. Now he
breaking all kinds of news around here.
Saw him taking snaps from Boaz Stanley, who again is a transfer offensive lineman from Troy's. We've talked about him on the site, and I'm sure you guys have on here as well about him possibly being the next starting center for Carolina.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're doing quarterback center exchanges while special teams drills were going on. Another bit of breaking news that may or may not already be like pretty well known and not surprising to hear for anybody. I think Nick Barrett and Monkel Goodwine are at the top of the heap for defensive tackles. They are the only 2 returning scholarship defensive tackles on this team. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I think they're starters right now. That appeared to be the case out there.
Yeah.
And beyond that, a lot of special teams and ball security. I will say this, in all seriousness though, we're watching some special teams. Like I said, then the next period they go into like a ball security, and for the skill guys and the defensive players are working on like pursuit angles and that type of thing. And I'm not sure who Faison put this spin move on, but good Lord, it was impressive. The little spin move he hit in this drill. I don't know if it would have been any different if there was actually tackling full contact, not just, the thudding up type of deal, but it looked cool. He looked pretty smooth hitting that B button out there on the practice field today.
Yeah, my understanding is this running back room is probably going to it probably won't surprise a lot of people around here. Probably will, but if you've been paying attention to anything we talk about, it shouldn't. But others who maybe, in other areas of the country that aren't as in tune to the running back room at South Carolina, especially now that Rocket Sanders is gone, people were paying attention to it last offseason because Rocket Sanders was in. Oh, Rocket Sanders at South Carolina. They should be pretty good. I'm not so sure they're going to get the same run this year, Hale, but the intel that I've got is this is a really, really good looking group. And so far they like all of them. I mean, I don't even know if there's a scenario where all of them aren't playing. As of now, it seems like that would probably be pretty likely.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all relatively close in terms of just how good they are. I think their skill sets are pretty similar. Never mind, like you said, they all look the same. I mean, they're all like 5'10", 220, somewhere in there, give or take. Maybe a half inch or a few pounds. So very, very similar types of backs too, in terms of just how they're.
We're starting it's going to be a factory here, the running back factory at the University of South Carolina with all these guys going out there and
I don't know.
Putting the rock. Hale, you just got ambushed by a mad dog and a Schubert.
My man.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this place a running back factory until there's another 1,000-yard rusher.
That's about to say.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying they got
15 years.
They got 4 of them right now on the roster. 4,000-yard rushers right here.
Oh, they're all going to hit 1,000 yards.
Yeah,
this year?
that's what I'm saying. It's
Well, that's because LaNorris Sellers isn't going to be running the football anymore.
Oh,
because Mike Shula
is going to scheme that right out.
He's just going to scheme it out, right?
That'll grow legs in a hurry. You know better.
I was joking.
Totally,
you know
dude.
better.
God.
Somebody right now is tweeting. Here we go.
Hold on. Let me delete that.
Yeah, don't. Well, I wasn't talking about you.
Did you tweet that? Oh my god!
No, I would never.
I actually
on a burner account.
We were. That's right. I need a burner account.
Come on,
That's what I
Hale.
need.
Everybody does. Everybody. I used to have one. I don't anymore. But there's a JC Sherbert parody account out there. A couple of them.
Is there? Yeah, I think there's a Hale one too.
Yeah, I think mine. The one you mentioned is probably run by the same person as one of those.
Yeah,
it's that same guy, same deranged Clemson fan. That I think he has about
like
16
5 X accounts, right? Yeah.
I thought it was Wes Mitchell. It's not Wes. I'm just kidding.
It'd be hilarious.
I love Wes. I don't think Wes
would be
stoop that low.
Kind of funny if that was the case.
Next time you see Wes, ask him, Hale, hey, you know anything about this?
I'll just text him. I'll say, I'm hearing you're running a burner account.
That's what I might text it myself. Hey, man, you came up today on the show.
Yeah.
What's the deal with this burner account?
Yeah, that's right. But keep your name out of it.
What are you hearing from the wide receiving core? Have you heard anything that you'd like to add on that group?
Nothing really behind the scenes lately.
But
Mike Furry talked to the media. What was it 2 days ago? Earlier this week, and he lit up like a damn Christmas tree after a few questions about those freshmen. It was like,
yeah, he did.
Boy, howdy! I love these guys, and the smile on my face. If that doesn't tell you anything, then I don't know what will. Like, I'd like to play poker with him because he doesn't have a poker face.
No,
he does not.
It may have been the most positive all-season position coach press conference I've ever heard.
Yeah, he
was trying to do the coach speak thing and all that, but
he couldn't help himself. Yeah,
we just kept wearing him down. Just a war of attrition in there, and we got him.
Is there anybody that has maybe been standing out above the others, or you don't really?
Like I said, I haven't heard anything behind the scenes since practice got going, and we certainly don't get to see anything when we're out there. So I got nothing for you.
Well, thankfully, we're going to have a spring game around here, so we'll be able to get our eyes on some of these guys. It's
only if you're there.
We're not scared to have a spring game at South Carolina, unlike these other pansies across the country, Southern Cal and
Matt Rule. Oh yeah, Southern Cal. That program. That's a real tough, hard-nosed football machine out there.
Yeah,
they don't need the extra work at all.
Just a bunch of pansies
going surfing. So
yeah.
All right. It's I've heard. I heard exactly what he said in the press conference. As far as behind the scenes, I didn't know that Lex Cyrus set the school record for vertical leap. That was a nice news nugget, right? I don't know that I expected that, but I knew Brian Rowe could jump.
Yeah,
but Lex, Lex crazy with Lex. I thought, I was like, wow, that's a little something extra there.
Yeah. So after the press conference, Furry said he thought Lex's vertical number was like 41. He wasn't totally sure like who had what number between Lex and Brian Rowe, but I had heard a week or so ago, before practice started, that Rowe had an incredible vertical number, but and I'd heard some good things about Lex, but it was not mentioned to me how high he jumped.
I wasn't prepared for that. I thought for a minute, because they both are kind of similarly built, that maybe he was mixing them up, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like something he would do. So I was like, wow.
Yeah, I know you got to go. I didn't even see the time. Go ahead, man.
Oh,
thanks,
sorry.
buddy.